executions methods from the ancient world. Some persons may think that shooting someone or sending them to jail is the worst way to punish a victim for an offense, apparently, in the ancient world. People had a whole bunch of ways to off their fellow humans. And get this, skinning was one of them. Can you believe it? I mean, what kind of sick and twisted world was that? But wait, it gets even worse. There were actually 8 different ways they did it. Yup, you read that right, 8. I don't know about you, but this is getting really interesting and fascinating. I suggest you watch to the end to get a whole out of this bunch. Subscribe because that makes me feel better and motivated, and a like keeps the YouTube algorithm in our favor, since it does indeed break the bank. We would love to have it from you. Let's get to it. First on the list, the brazen bull. Arguably the most famous figure of ancient Greece is the Athenian Socrates, executed in old age by being commanded to drink hemlock. This method of indirect execution was typical of the capital punishment dished out to Athenian citizens. They could be banished into a wilderness to die of exposure or thrown into a chasm to die of their injuries. One Greek ruler is alleged to have used something far more sinister, however. In the 6th century BC, Phalaris, the tyrant of Acragas in Sicily, was presented with a device made by the Attic sculptor Perillos. This was known as the brazen bull. Made entirely of bronze and the size of a real bull, the condemned was placed inside the hollow bull via a small door at the back. A great fire would be lit underneath, and the unfortunate fellow inside would be slowly roasted alive. The brazen bull had a system of pipes inside which converted the screams of the burning victim into moaning from the bull's mouth. So, like, everyone knows about Socrates, right? He's like the OG of ancient Greece. But did you know that the Athenians were some real sickos when it came to capital punishment? Like, they'd banish people to the wilderness to die or throw them into a chasm to suffer a slow, painful death. And don't even get me started on what they did to slaves. It's messed up, man. 2. Death by molten metal. So, like, back in ancient Israel, they had this Mosaic law thing going on. And traditionally they had 36 crimes that were punishable by death. Like, whoa, talk about harsh. Get this, if you were guilty of incest or adultery with a married daughter of a member of the priesthood, they would burn you alive. Nevertheless, it wasn't just a regular burn from the outside. Nope, they had to strangle you first with a soft rope. How considerate of them, right? And then, just to make sure you were really dead, they poured molten lead down your throat. Like, seriously, what kind of sick and twisted punishment is that? 3. Pena culiae. You know, back then in ancient Rome, if someone said you were gonna get the sack, it wasn't just a warning that you might lose your job. Basically, they would beat you up first, just to make sure you were really feeling the pain. Then they would stuff you into a big old sack and toss you into the river or sea. But wait, there's more. You wouldn't be alone in that sack. Oh no, they'd throw in a snake, a chicken, an ape, and a dog for good measure. I mean, seriously, what kind of messed up punishment is that? Who comes up with this stuff? It's like they were trying to outdo each other with the most creative and cruel ways to torture people. And don't even get me started on the fact that they'd throw innocent animals in there too. I swear, ancient times were the worst. 4. Flaying. At that time, flaying is a thing. Yeah, you heard me right. It's when you peel off someone's skin while they're still alive. And get this, it's been used as a method of execution for centuries. What the actual heck, people? I mean, seriously, who comes up with this stuff? The kings of the Assyrian Empire were apparently big fans of flaying their enemies, especially rebel leaders. And they were proud of it. Like, what kind of sick pride is that? And don't even get me started on the Ras Sam cylinder. It's a record of some king's military deeds, and one section talks about how they stripped off their enemies' skins and used them to decorate the city wall. I mean, come on. That's just messed up. Overall, I'm gonna have to give flaying a big thumbs down. It's barbaric, inhumane, and just plain wrong. 5. The waist chop. This man called Li Si. This dude was a big shot in early imperial China. He was a writer, politician, and philosopher. But, as it goes, he ended up pissing off the wrong guy to Zhao Gao. And let me tell you, Zhao Gao was not someone you wanted to mess with. He had Li Si executed in the most brutal way possible, the ancient 5 pains. Now, I don't know about you, but I think cutting off someone's nose, foot, and hand is a bit excessive. But oh no, Zhao Gao wasn't done yet. He went ahead and emasculated Li Si Yep, removed his penis and testicles. And just when you thought it couldn't get any worse, he had him chopped in half at the waist. I mean, seriously, what kind of sicko does that? But wait, there's more. Zhao Gao also had Li Si's entire extended family executed. And not just his immediate family, but his extended family too, up to the 3rd degree. Talk about collective prosecution. And get this, the waist chop wasn't even abolished until the 18th century. I mean, what the actual heck? How could anyone think that was an acceptable way to execute someone? It's just downright barbaric. In conclusion, Li Si's execution was a complete and utter atrocity. Zhao Gao was a monster, and the fact that this kind of punishment was allowed for so long is just mind-boggling. 6. An eye for an eye. So, back in the day of the First Babylonian Empire, c. 1894 BC, circa 1595 BC, in modern-day Iraq, they were all about balance. But not the kind of balance you're thinking of. No, no, no. They were all about the principle of talio, the law of retaliation. And let me tell you, it was brutal. If you knocked someone's teeth out, guess what? Your teeth were getting knocked out too. Perjurers would lose their tongues and rapists would get castrated. But hold up, it wasn't all fair game. If a free man assaulted or even murdered a slave, they'd just get fined. What kind of messed up double standard is that? And don't even get me started on the death penalty. If you got caught looting in a house fire, they'd just throw you into the burning building and call it a day. Burglars didn't have it any better either. They'd get hanged at the place they burgled. Talk about a harsh punishment. But wait, there's more. Negligence could also get you killed. If you were a builder and one of your constructions collapsed and killed someone, you were put to death. Furthermore, if a surgeon killed a slave through malpractice, all they had to do was restore it. Are you kidding me? Honestly, the Babylonian Empire's idea of justice is just plain ridiculous. It's a good thing we've come a long way since then. 7. Crucifixion. Oh boy, let me tell you about ancient Rome. It was a real doozy of a time, let me tell you. Justice was all about what class you were in. If you were a slave on trial, forget about it. The court would only accept evidence obtained through torture. And get this, they would even torture you right there in the courtroom. Can you imagine? Now, if you were unlucky enough to be crucified, you were in for a real treat. This punishment was usually reserved for slaves and second-class citizens. But hey, sometimes even the upper-class folks got in on the action. Lucky them. The whole process was just brutal. First, they would strip you naked and beat you senseless. Then, they would make you carry a huge wooden cross to your execution spot. And that's not even the worst part. Next, they would nail you to the cross through your hands and feet. And if that wasn't enough, soldiers or just random people passing by would stab, beat, or just generally humiliate you. It was a real party, let me tell you. Now, if you were really lucky, they might crucify you upside down. Sounds crazy, right? But apparently, it was considered a mercy because death would come quicker. The actual cause of death varied from case to case. It could be anything from septic shock from the open wounds to just plain old asphyxiation when the person couldn't breathe properly anymore. All of this would be done in as public a fashion as possible. All in all, ancient Rome was a real hoot. Can't say I'd want to live there, but it sure is fun to read about. Crucifixion was abolished throughout the Roman Empire in 337. 8. The boats. So, let me tell you about Mithridates. This dude was a soldier back in the day, like way back in 401 BC. He was fighting for the First Persian Empire, which was pretty legit at the time. But then, get this, he goes and gets drunk at a royal banquet and totally betrays King Artaxerxes too. Not cool, Mithridates, not cool. So, what does the king do? He orders the most messed up punishment ever, scaphism. Yeah, you heard me right, scaphism. It's also known as the boats, and it's basically a slow and painful death sentence. According to Plutarch, who wrote about this stuff hundreds of years later, the punishment starts with the condemned being put in a boat. But not just any boat, oh no. Another boat is sealed on top of it to make a sort of shell, with the dude's arms, legs, and head sticking out of the sides. Then, they force feed him honey and milk. Sounds kinda nice, right? Wrong. After a while, his face and limbs are completely covered in flies. And that's not even the worst part. The guy starts suffering from diarrhea in the boat, and vermin start feeding on his excrement. And then, they start entering his body and feeding on him from the inside out. It's like a horror movie, but worse because it's real. In conclusion, Mithridates messed up big time and paid the ultimate price. Mithridates apparently lasted 17 days in the boats before dying. And scaphism? Yeah, let's just say I'm glad we don't do that anymore. In final conclusion, people have been killing other people for a long time. And not just in the olden days, my friend. Nope, even in modern times, we've got some countries still using the death penalty. Can you believe it? It's like we haven't evolved at all. Take England, for example. Back in 1723, they came up with this thing called the Bloody Code, where they made over 200 things punishable by death. And I'm not talking about murder or anything like that. No. We're talking about damaging a fish pond, cutting down a shrub, or even having a dirty face on a road at night. Seriously, what kind of messed up world is that? For France. They were still guillotining people in 1977. That's like, what, yesterday? Sadly, even today, there are 56 countries that still have the death penalty on the books. But hey, at least only 18 of them actually carried out executions last year. Small victories, right? But seriously, folks, the death penalty is just plain wrong. It's barbaric, it's inhumane, and it's not even an effective deterrent.